Restaurant Unstoppable, inspire, empower, and transform the industry. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, founder and CEO of both Kiwi Restaurant Partners and Nurish, Troy Hooper. My man, Troy, are you feeling unstoppable today?
Incredibly unstoppable.
Yes, that is what we like to hear. So, man, I enjoyed looking you up this morning because I started to dive in. I was like, this guy has been all over the place. And I see records of you starting Kiwi Restaurant Partners all the way back to 2005. But it sounds like that was more of like a parent company that you're doing consulting under. But then in 2018, you really decided to maybe pivot. I don't know what the heck's going on, but you clearly have a really interesting background working in corporate and fine dining. And today you launched Nurish, which is this really neat concept of, it seems like you're putting brands on fast tracks. Like you're just kind of creating these paths for them and saying, okay, you have a good idea. Now let's put you in the system to really catch fire.
That is right.
Generally?
That is dead on. We look at it as a platform before anything.
I love it.
A way of getting an idea out there quickly and successfully.
Yeah, and I'm excited to be here too because honestly, you haven't been called out officially on the show. However, it seems like every other conversation I have, especially during the pandemic and this conversation about ghost kitchens and who's doing it right and who can we learn from at ghost kitchens, your name kept coming up from multiple different people. And then I even spoke to Jason Berkowitz, who was a past guest on the show because he's based in Los Angeles. I let him know I was coming to town and he said I needed to talk to you. So, man, all signs are pointing to Troy Hooper right now.
Well, that's awfully generous. I appreciate that. Hopefully I've earned some portion of what you've said.
No pressure.
There.
No pressure.
No pressure. Okay. I'll try.
All right. I cannot wait to get into your story. Well, let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
It just goes back to something I learned probably about 18, 20 years ago, and that is seek first to understand, then be understood. And that's a Stephen Covey quote. I found Covey by accident, and it has served me very, very, very well for somebody who's very ambitious and high speed. It means for me to slow it down and think before I speak and ask before I tell. And having been in a lot of leadership roles, that's a super important quality. So I do try to remind myself of that almost every day.
I love that quote. One of the 7 habits of highly effective people.
You got it.
And I love that quote because what is empathy, right? Empathy is trying to understand the other person's perspective. And it's hard to understand if you don't listen, if you don't really try to take in what it is. Tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what it's like from your angle, from your perspective. And until you open up that dialogue to take it in, you just don't know. Also, people will why go into a dispute or a conversation without as much data as possible? People will tell you exactly what they want to hear if you let them tell you.
Right.
And if you're ever going to negotiation or if you're just trying to have a conversation or whatever, if you just keep your mouth shut and ask questions and listen, they will give you all the information you need. It's a very powerful state of mind.
Yeah, and after a lifetime of putting your foot in your mouth, you tend to say, maybe if I take in some perspectives here, I gather information rather than find out through failure, try to mandate something and find out, hey, but what about this? Or did you think about that? It's better to kind of gain that intel first. And then obviously by doing that, you gain collaboration, you gain trust, you gain input, you gain investment from whoever you're working with, whether it's a partner or a customer or most importantly a staff and employee member that you need to get to move in a certain direction. So you just through trial and error, when you ask and you get information and then you have more than what you can just produce on your own brain, it's going to serve you better to be more successful more quickly.
Great way to get this thing started. So where does it make sense to start sharing your story? I know that you grew up in the hospitality industry, nightclubs. I know you're from Miami. I know you went to Johnson and Wales. I know you studied culinary. I know that you kind of had a few bad experiences early on in the culinary world. But where do you want to start today's story?
Yeah, no, I mean, I did. My dad owned a couple of construction companies, but really was a kind of a playboy at heart, loved the nightclub industry. He met my mother on New Year's Eve in a nightclub on Miami Beach that he was a part owner and operator of. Back then, there were private clubs. And so until like recently in LA, I didn't know what was that meant, a private social or dining club, but that was real popular in the 80s. So I grew up in that environment, just in the service and hospitality space, really didn't know much else between construction and that and college football. Those were my passions. So by the time I was 16, I was a busboy in a Bennigan's.
Okay.
Everybody can look up what a Bennigan's is. They're still around, sort of, but early age TGI Fridays or competitor. And very quickly thought, hey, I love cooking. I grew up, my dad having parties and, special events, and I love to be in the kitchen and making those meat platters of the 70s and 80s with the rolled meats and the colored toothpicks, And so I went to Johnson & Wales. I wanted to be a chef. I thought that was it. I'm going to be a chef. I'm going to own a restaurant. That's going to be my life. And did that and worked in restaurants while going to school. Made it up to sous chef by the time I graduated. I guess I thought the corporate food and beverage world was the more secure place to go. And that's where those sort of negative situations happen where, it's just super high pressure. They're going to work you like a dog. They're going to pay you terribly. They're going to yell at you. It's going to be very regimented. And I was a more free-flowing kind of guy.
Was in the corporate world.
Yeah, yeah.
We would expect to not hear that. Maybe in the 90s, it was a different time. 90s.
Yeah.
I'm guessing this was early 90s.
Early 90s, yeah. Early mid 90s, and and it could just be bad luck. I picked a couple of spots, and they just burnt me out real quick, and I had a lot of interest and ambition on the business side of it.
Get into detail about the bad, the ugly, the stuff that we don't want to see again. Really paint that picture. The things that should just be outdated.
Absolutely, cliche. Screaming, yelling, berating. You're stupid. You don't know what you're doing. How did you ever get in here? Just over messing up a batch of whatever, right? Not slicing the tomatoes to spec exact or whatever. Just poor leadership, just high growth and mentality,
Data driven.
Yeah, exactly. Brought up from within, whether you're ready or not to be the leader of that business, just there's not a lot of great culture built in. And honestly, it's funny when you look back at that now and realize that 20 of my 30 years in this industry are around building great cultures and repairing and turning around businesses in a variety of genres and venue models. That part of my career, I think, stemmed from trying to be the opposite of that and helping fix environments and businesses where it was very clear that was the problem, right? That was the thumb on the business that was holding it back. So, looking back, it's definitely where that mentality was born.
So you were back of house during this time, right?
Early on, back of the house, kitchen only, chef driven. I wanted to be a chef.
So when you graduated, did you go back to Bennigan's or were you working in other?
No, I did end up, like anything, I went to school and graduated culinary school and was like, okay, I still want to get my bachelor's degree. I'm interested in the business. My dad being an entrepreneur, really stressed. He was a mathematician like nobody I'd ever seen, and I hated math, so I had to force myself to understand economics and really get into it so I could understand the business side, because ultimately I did want to own my own restaurant. So I did end up at a family, we'll call it a Italian pub, a college Italian pub, and that's
Miami.
This is all Miami. I'm in Miami my whole life until I'm 26 years old, and so in that environment, I was given a little bit of an opportunity to understand menu engineering and economics and daily sales and forecasting for production, things like that. So, I really got interested in the business side of it.
What were the key elements about menu engineering that you learned during this time? And things like just common things that you just think surprisingly just aren't common knowledge when it comes to menu engineering.
Yeah, honestly, looking at actual data, like looking at sales, like, hey, we love this menu item. We're really invested in this menu item, but it's not selling. Now, why is it not selling? Did we not describe it well? Are the staff not really invested in explaining it, or do they even explain the menu to anybody at all? Really looking at sales and data, right? So that's sort of that. Once that unlock happened for me, I went all in. I got real interested in analytics. The leadership, the ownership, that was a family business, and on the corporate side too, right? In the corporate stores, when you would get your daily prep and your weekly sales reports, and in corporate you have a lot of limited offers, right? LTOs. So they're going to roll a commercial out, for X new item, seasonal item, or new invention item, and so there was always pressure around making those work, spiffing that sale to the sales floor, to the servers.
What's the reason for that, though? When you have an LTO, limited time offer, why is there so much pressure to make them work?
Well, generally because they're trying to drum up a lot of business in a short period of time, right? They're trying to really spike up the sales in a short period of time and take advantage of whether it's a season or a holiday, right? And you're thinking about the TGI Fridays and Olive Gardens of the world type environment, right? Chili's and Macaroni Grill. They're having to do something to competitively bring people back in and give them something new. And generally they're going to engineer those to be a fairly profitable item, right? It's going to be a low-cost production item that they can get a $19.95 steak out of that costs them $3.
So what's the psychology behind that? Why is it so important to do a limited time offer, which is something you see a lot of corporations and chains do? They're always trying to get your attention with something, but what's going on there? Like, what's the psychology?
Shiny wheel, right? The shiny object. Can I get your attention and have you come try something that you would not be able to or doesn't exist somewhere else? I mean, the McRib, right? Why does it keep coming back every X years on a schedule? It's just grabbing attention. It's just another story to tell. It's a new story or the same old story to recycle,
it's
right?
a way to create juxtaposition in what you're already doing. Like, look, something new and special. Like, and it's only a limited time offer, so you better come in soon.
Right.
And it's just a way when you have a set menu that doesn't change often. It's a way to create a sense of maybe FOMO or just to pull people in.
Right. Yeah. And they are. You'll notice not so much at the corporate level. The McDonald's of the world still do them, but they do them a lot less. They put more thought and time and energy into whether they'll kind of work preemptively and what they'll get out of it, because I think as a people we've evolved a little bit beyond that trick. Like, we've learned that trick, and so I think we want as consumers we want to connect better and more meaningfully with businesses in general. We want there to be a story. So I think that rather than really focusing on what's the next new shiny object, really now we're talking about storytelling. Right now we're talking about really understanding what the menu item is, where did it come from, who's inspiring it, why did we make a decision to put that on there, what's unique about it, who's that for? Is that when you have a menu, if it's got a fair amount of variety to it, what you're trying to do is cover the whole demographic of that micro market. You're trying to say that we've got something for you, and the only way for people to know about it is if you tell a story around it. So we're seeing more of that, and I think that is resonating and giving it longer legs rather than this thing's only around for 30 days or 45 days. We've got something, we've done a menu, we have a reason behind it, we want you to understand what's on it, and we're going to tell the story around each thing.
Why do you think there was this shift of going towards just a kind of like, shiny object, the approach of just like, let's just try to catch your attention right now, to this approach that you're talking about, impact, depth, story? What's going on there? Why is that the evolution of marketing?
Consumer maturity and deafening around the volume of marketing, right? So with the maturity of the internet, if you think about where did you see information pre-iPhone, right? Pre-social media. And of course, being a bit older and starting in the early 90s, it was the traditional TV, radio, print, blah, blah, blah.
Billboard, yeah.
Well, now you're getting bombarded constantly, so it's harder to stand out, right?
You don't even know it anymore.
Yeah.
Now, like, you're subconsciously, constantly, like, everything you do, the data that, like, we're being tracked. Everything. If you have a phone on you and you didn't turn off the data options,
everything,
like, you're being followed, you're being, like, everything you do, your behavior is being used to market to you.
Right. And so that volume right now, it's very hard to stand out. And so little tricks or gimmicks or, something that's like, only right now. And you're like, yeah, right. It's going to come back in 6 months. I'll just, whatever. If I'm around to it. And by the way, it's not just food and beverage. It's retail. It's every segment within retail. It's all the new ways to order things. It's just constant. And so I just don't think that trick makes sense because it's not going to resonate. There has to be a connecting point. There has to be a plug-in.
Yeah, you start getting,
and that's not going to do it anymore.
You started talking about story, and basically what I was hoping it's coming out, but this idea that we're, as marketers and as we learn more about human behavior and the science of humans and how we are, why we are the way we are, how we tick, what's going on internally, the power of story and really pulling on the strings of hearts and getting people to identify with specific things. So if you know who your target market is and you know what appeals to them, you can tell a narrative that will help really like get that specific person that has the same values and the things that are important to you or are important to them. Is conscious capitalism and leaning into that, right?
Yeah, conscious capitalism, I think, is one of the words that is starting to be understood a little bit more. Again, it comes back to recognizing humans are humans, and to motivate humans, you have to connect with them on a more meaningful level than. Now, to say that is that's the long tail. That's the make a connection, make a long time, lifetime value customer more valuable to your business. Convenience and removing friction is still first, right? Making it easy, making it fast, making it consistent. Those are the things we all still care about at the highest level. But beyond that, once you've met that, once there's a trust relationship built there, that is understood, and I can rely on those elements. It's that, and then it really comes down to, and now it's then what, right? So now it's like, so what? Beyond that, because everybody, it's going to become a commodity, right? McDonald's and fast food, like that's a commodity in that it's predictable and it's consistent. Quality regardless of what somebody thinks. Sometimes you'll just settle because it's the only choice, or it's the fastest choice, or it's the least friction between you and what you need to do. But in the consumer that kind of wants to take a beat and think about it for a minute, there's got to be more there, right? Okay, yes, it's fast. Yes, it's close. Yes, I can get it delivered. It's convenient. It's pretty consistent. I know what I like there. I can get that when I am in the mood for that, or if I need it, I know what I'm going to get from that. And then it's then what? So who are they really? What is their motivation? What do they care about? Why do they exist? What are they doing? Like, am I hurting the environment? Am I helping my community by supporting them? Those now become part of the conversation, sort of as the second tier, but the more important tier, the more important piece of it, because that's what drives long-term relationships. Because if somebody does exactly what you do, but then they also do these other things that people care about and want to connect with and want to support, now they're going to win. Now you're vulnerable.
So you need both sides of it. And like, I think that there is a lot of our market was built on this idea of easy, fast, and consistent value added. And I think that that's important because, yeah, you do need to create a path of least resistance, obviously, but at what cost?
Right.
And I think we kind of reached this point of like, can we still make this a priority? Is fast, easy, and convenient the most important thing? And if it is, should that be the case? Like, should we change it? Should consciousness take a little bit more of a center stage of like, is this what's best for everybody? Is this what's best for our environment? I think that's starting to kind of bounce out a little bit.
It is. And, quite frankly, I don't think most people really realize it, but one of my favorite examples of this is Sweetgreen.
Yeah.
And why did Sweetgreen come on so hard, so fast, so big? Why is there such a connection and a loyalty there? What's really going on? And when you really look at it, it's like, yeah, all of that solved, all convenience and location, and we're going to make it. We're going to have outposts, and we're just going to make that easy. Let's really talk about what we're trying to do here. We're trying to support regional and seasonal ingredients. We're trying to do foods that are good for the environment in regards to no pesticides, no GMOs, those kinds of stories that they're trying to tell. They really do a great job of telling the human side. Who works at a Sweetgreens and why are they here? They're not here for a job, they're here for a mission, right? And so really selling the mission and that total vision of inclusivity and diversity with the humans, with the food, with the support of the local farmer. They've really put a package together and said, oh, by the way, and you can get it anywhere you want, really fast, really consistent. You can build what you want. We're going to have fresh new ideas based on the seasons changing. All that's going to be great. The only limiting factor is do you want salad? Right? Or do you want a quinoa bowl? Or do you want so innovation is going to always have to be on their roadmap of what can we do to kind of change it up and give people more variety. But man, they've done such a great job with that full package and really focusing on what I think today's consumer and realize, if you build something today, a new brand, a new concept, a new venue model, et cetera, you're really building it for who your customer is 5 to 10 years from now.
Yeah, it's not a this or that being easy, fast, convenient, or thoughtful, impactful, conscious. It's yes and.
It has to be and.
Yeah,
yes.
and that's kind of where we are in today's age. But back to your timeline. So Miami, you said up to the age of 26. Let's just real quick, let's zoom up to 30,000 feet. And,
Yeah.
Entertain me without getting into any detail.
Yeah.
You're 26 years old. What were the stops along the way that you made until 2018? Because I know that's when you started Nurish, which is your main focus today.
Yeah. So I went from I got burnt out as a chef. I went to Procter & Gamble Corporate America in the sales side. Happened to be on the food side, which was great.
Past sponsor of the show, Procter & Gamble. Thank
very
you very
good.
much.
Great company. Learned a lot. They invest a lot in you. I did very, very well there on all metrics. Really matured. Found Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits during that, and really was rocketed to, let's call it, professional maturity. While I was there, I was still getting people asking about help my business. Can you help us? You're in a lot of other businesses. Can you help us do better? What's going on? What's happening? You're really understanding the power of a sales role is really as a consultant. It's really as an information gatherer and provider. And
first seek to understand.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just very curious, and I got my business degree while I was there. Really got focused on what is a good business, what is a good business model, how do you make a business work, and how do you pivot, and what are those fundamentals that are always true? What are those ground rules? And so after Procter & Gamble, I kind of got burnt out after a number of years there. I took a break. I got into other businesses. I made some investments.
What's the year? When did you leave Procter & Gamble?
2006.
Got it.
Yeah, so 2006. I invested in a dive shop. Scuba center. It's part of my life. I've always been heavily involved in water sports and yachting. Some funny things about me that people don't know is I have. At one time, I had a 500-ton yacht captain. I worked on 3 of the largest 10 yachts in the world. Wow. Still hospitality, though, right? At the end of the day, it was still part of that hospitality drive. Serving people, bringing people to great places.
Have you ever seen that show Below Deck?
Oh, my gosh.
My God, I got sucked
It's
into
really true in some respects. And then, on the bigger things, it's not so common. They don't put up with that. But, so I dabbled around. I ended up in the Caribbean for about 6 years, and I got bored, and I really wanted to stretch the entrepreneurial leg. I really wanted to stretch the hospitality leg. And just, through knowing people, meeting people, telling people I'm ready for something, I got brought to a development in the Bahamas that they were building a brand new resort, the largest resort in the Bahamas, largest marina in the Bahamas. Hey, can you come here and help us build out some of the elements of this? I started in the amenities side of.
So what's the year now?
2011.
2011.
Yeah.
So what were you doing to develop a rapport and a reputation for yourself as being somebody to go to help open? What was your role in opening the largest resort in Bahamas? Yeah,
so I was initially brought in to help completely build out the amenities, the activities.
Got it.
Hey, yachting, Caribbean, resorts, you obviously know food and beverage. How can we bring all these together and put together a package of activities and amenities and things for people to do at this resort or near this resort? And so I ended up building out that business for that resort. And of course, while there, you get to hang out with all the other guys doing the resort stuff. So all the chefs and food and beverage guys coming from all over the world.
It's not a horrible place to be trapped.
Yeah, it was managed by Vail Resorts, so they were bringing people from the best resorts from around the world in. So I'm getting to meet top executives and top management people, making friends, and that's really what okay, you know what? I think the hotel side of this, the food and beverage hotel side of this, is really exciting. I met my wife there. That's really what happens. I meet my wife. She gets transferred back to Colorado. We end up in Vail, Colorado, where she was before, because she had been there on assignment to help that and other resorts do what she does on the wedding and event side, social destination side. And so it was sort of like, hey, if this is going to continue, I'm going back to Colorado. And I said, look, I've been in the Caribbean for 5.5 years. Sure, why not? Mountains? Well, I love Colorado. That'd be cool, right?
It is a gorgeous place.
It is
another
gorgeous.
place that doesn't exist another place that doesn't suck to exist.
Yeah.
Is Vail, Colorado. The Rockies are gorgeous.
So I go to Colorado, and the way it works out is we end up in Breckenridge ultimately, and Vail and Hilton corporate go in a partnership to take over a lodge, kind of a one-off mom-and-pop lodge. They're going to convert it into a hotel. It's Hilton's first on ski-run resort and hotel in the world. They name it a DoubleTree because at the time Hilton didn't have 25 different levels of boutique brands that they had created that they have today. And I had the great opportunity, got invited to help build out and rebuild that resort's, first of all, make a lodge a resort and build out the food and beverage offering. So they said, hey, you have a lot of experience. You're a chef. We need to hire chefs. We need a concept. We need to design that concept, design the menu. We need to come up with what is that marketing plan conversation. And really the challenge was, how do you get people in Breckenridge, Colorado to come to this hotel up the hill on the run if they're not staying there and enjoy a food and beverage offering? How do we get them? Well, we have to build something that is competitively relevant. We have to build something that is perceived as much higher quality than you would get at a DoubleTree or other hotel product. We have to be unique, right? And we have to tell that story. And so we went with a farm to fork concept. Basically, farm to table was too common and whatnot. We went to farm to fork mentality. We actually sourced all of our food within, let's call it a 5-state region touching Colorado. Went out and actually selected the ranchers and took advantage of the produce that was in some of the valleys. And we created a fantastic, cool concept. Obviously very beer centric, very whiskey centric, which is very Colorado at the time. A lot of beer tourism and whiskey tourism there, distillery tourism. And that just parlayed into, great, we need a kind of a private lounge for our diamond guests. We have an opportunity with Starbucks to do a grab-and-go cafe lobby. So we tore down the wall and connected the back of the kitchen to the lobby and put out a Starbucks branded, co-branded Hilton grab-and-go small warm bistro. And so that's where the juices start flowing around creating ideas and concepts, justifying the why to a corporate entity that says, that's great, cool idea, why, how, money, what's it going to do, forecasting, really getting into the business side, really developing the entrepreneurial spirit within a corporate structure, but a corporate structure that had a lot of money and a lot of motivation, and being under that high pressure because basically the top 5 from Hilton and the top 5 from Vail Resorts was probably already always in the building every day of the week. Like at some point somebody was there, right? So you're always on your game, always on your toes, really trying to deliver very, very high quality in a very high pressure, high volume environment. So Breckenridge really sets us up as a company to it's Kiwi Hospitality Partners is the parent company. It's the company I created for our consulting business. And I had it for a while because I had done different things, little projects, one-on-one consultings. And I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to provide these types of services to people who want to create concepts that are unique, one-off, but I also want to do scalability. I want to do businesses that can replicate. I want to make sure that what we're doing is sustainable beyond a one-off environment. So
when you say one-off environment, you're talking like within the 4 walls of a hotel.
Yeah, a single activation, one brand, one place, one story, one style. Don't rinse and repeat, move on, right?
Got it.
I really got interested in, if it's scalable, it's sustainable, right? Anybody can create a great idea. We see lots of fantastic one-off restaurants built by celebrity people, chefs and investors and things. But, sometimes, particularly in fickle and finicky environments like Beverly Hills, California, something that costs $5 million to open 5 years from now might not be here, right? Because it was built for that moment, for that niche, for that gap in the market, and now we're onto the new thing. So some environments, some markets,
which is why I
demand
tend to not pay attention to trends.
Right.
People are always chasing trends.
I agree.
Trends are something that you do for a limited time offer because
Exactly.
you don't know how long it's going to be around. You don't want to invest millions of dollars into a trend. By the time you get the financing, by the time you get the build out, 2 years after the trend was a thing, is it even relevant anymore by the time your doors are open? Like,
right.
Don't trade. I just be the trend setter, not the
right.
trend chaser.
Right.
So 2011 to when you're with Vail, Breckenridge, and
so we're there 3.5 years. 2015, we moved to California.
2015, you said?
2015. So we got married in 2014 in Santa Barbara, California. My wife's from Ventura, and that was it. 3 years of snow, staring at a fourth winter, very near coming in our face. And we said, we got married on the beach. We took a month off because in that industry you can, and did our honeymoon in Mexico. And, after 4, 5, 6 weeks on the beach, the prospect of going back and being snowed in for months at a time was no longer of interest. And so we said, I don't care. Let's pack our stuff and go. So we literally just came to California without a plan. Like, we'll figure it out. Let's go. We ended up in Laguna Niguel, Aliso Viejo, which is in Orange County, and that's really out of necessity. I said, great, I'm not going back to a corporate job. I love this creative environment. I want to do this full time, and so I started consulting full time. I started working with, it turned out, private city club and then a private golf club, and restaurant clients started coming out of introductions. There's a lot of restaurant owners within those clubs. There's a lot of investors who want to get into different things like hotels. So we really just started putting it out there that I've got a couple of people in my sphere that I can work with, that we can start to help people that want to make their business better.
I want to start pulling back some layers now. So you spent a good chunk of your career with two well-known organizations between Vail and Hilton. Is it safe to say this was a big time of growth for you professionally?
Yes, absolutely.
So let's get into that growth. Who were you before? Who were you after? What were the key lessons you learned?
I was a slightly more confident, perceptively arrogant version of myself going into that, thinking, all right, I can do this. I'm the man. You've brought me in. I'm gonna knock this out of the park. And then 450 people line up for breakfast on the first morning. And you get humbled very quickly.
I can imagine.
When hangry everybody is screaming because their motivation is to get on that mountain, and you're holding them up. And by the way, you spend $150, $200 on a lift ticket, 8:01 a.m., you're pissed off that you're not on a lift already, right? So you want to get out there. And so
you want to be the first one to hit that powder.
You get humbled real quick when one line cook doesn't show up, and now all of the a la carte orders are backing up, and just the weeds beyond the weeds.
So how many different projects did you take from idea to concept to actual, I want to say brick and mortar because it was in the hotel, but to physical?
Yeah, we did three activations in that business, plus revamping the catering. By the way, we did all this for the first year under a full remodel, shutting down entire floors to remodel, shutting down banquets to remodel, remodeling, each of the venues.
Like, what was your role specifically in these things? Were you the visionary? Were you the
it was very
manager?
Collaborative, right? So obviously with the corporate structure, there was a lot of direction and a lot of conversation, but we were very, very involved, very at the table. Our input was very much appreciated and very much activated on all levels. They handed us the thing called Made Market, was the Hilton's grab and go cafe. They really leaned on us after having done the full service restaurant and said, hey, basically here's the blueprint of the physical space we can do, and here's what Starbucks requirements are. Here's some things we're thinking. And we actually got to really help design that. And particularly, I did all of the operational design. So we did all the manuals and menu design and we'll call it menu engineering, right? And testing of the ingredients. I had the great fortune of being a part of the decision team to hire the chefs for the whole property. And so being a part of that, we got to know each other, and you get to kind of know where their dreams are. Like, what are they trying to do, right? If you really give somebody an opportunity to spread their wings and do what they're really good at, then you're going to get the best result out of it, right? So we got to handle that entire project from the ground up, and that was a ton of fun. It was very, very successful. It exceeded all expectations. This is back, realize this is back when the whole grab and go thing and the little Starbucks kiosk activation within a hotel is brand new. And so guests are not,
back 7 years ago.
Guests don't even realize how much they want this. And so projections were pretty aggressive, we thought, and then boom, blew them out of the water in the first year because it just became so convenient, so easy. We started doing really innovative things like making breakfast burritos, just like 3 different types of breakfast burritos, and putting them out on the counter because we knew within 30 minutes, 100 burritos would be gone, and just making it super fast, like grab that bag and run out the door and you can get on the lift kind of a deal. And just made it super easy to be super, in the hotel, very transactional. It's easy because you just, what's your room number, sign here, go, right?
Yeah.
So we could have those pre-ready to
What was your
package.
title exactly?
Officially assistant director of food and beverage.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're doing things like you said, hiring, building out systems, menu engineering, trying to find efficiencies, trying to be ahead of the consumer and figure out what the consumer wants and then provide it to them. Did you learn anything like specific during this time that has stuck with you? Skills unique to this experience, things that have stuck with you to this day, or there are key mentors that kind of helped elevate you, get you to
So in that seasonal environment, you go from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour every morning, and then it stops for 3 months, and then you go from 0 to 800 miles an hour in the summer. While we were there, the summer foot traffic, the summer guest stays became equal to the winter while we were there.
How did that happen?
They put a lot of emphasis on summer activities. They built a lot of things on the mountain to attract people in the summer, like mountain biking trails and parks and zip lines. And they had the Alpine coaster running all year long, so that's a fun activity. So they created
That's an idea. Why not put like a roller coaster on a mountain? How much potential energy do you have? Start the roller coaster at the top?
They're a lot of fun.
Oh
They're
my God,
really cool.
That sounds like such a great idea. That thing could be 10 miles long and like have so much energy.
They were pretty long. I mean, you get on that thing and the ride
I
was
want to go to Vail, Colorado.
5-6 minutes, But yeah, so there was a lot happening, right? There's a lot changing in the industry. So I learned about seasonal hiring, right? You're going to hire 60 to 80 employees in a 3-week span, and you're going to lose 98% of them on the last day of season, right? You're hoping that they show up the last 5 days of season, right? But yeah, no, there's a lot of humility learned there, a lot of understanding about the energy flows of that kind of environment, how to get people to come in for lunch, how to get people to come in for dinner. Really, you're changing the entire business model from breakfast to lunch to dinner to really compel different types of people to come in and spend that time with you. So at night, we were much more about a wine program and wine pairing and the food and the connectivity with the guest. We had a lot of recurring and returning guests, so we encouraged our staff, who we expected to be recurring and returning, to really get to know them. So we made it very important that they could spend time at the table. So we built in efficiencies where we had food runners and probably a couple more help staff than we would to allow the servers to spend more time really developing a connection at the table.
That's hard to do, to develop a connection with somebody that you only see them once a year.
Yeah.
Right? So what were there things you guys did with CRM, like with relationship management to, like, did you know when they were coming? Like, how do you...
Yeah, we actually did.
That's going to be tough from a server perspective to remember details over 365 days.
So Hilton tried really hard. And again, this is really before any of these apps or, all the kind of loyalty things we take for granted that are app-based and mobile now. This is before all that. The hotels have always had great CRMs, but they haven't always been utilized to their best potential.
I think that's
we knew everything about everybody, but did you do anything with it?
Yeah,
right.
We get these tools, like whether it's Open Table or Resi or Bicky's a new CRM platform that's emerging that's doing cool stuff, but we don't leverage them. We have these abilities to collect data and to build an archive on our guests, but we don't leverage them at all. So how do you get the most out of those tools?
Yeah, so you have to use them, right?
Yeah.
And so it has to be built into the systems. And so in the hotel environment, and the ones that are doing it really well, like we thought we really did a really good job, was we really focused on guest connectivity and guest recognition. Of course, in that environment, they already have that loyalty program, the Diamond, the status level stuff. And so it was mandated that the Diamond folks were recognized by name, et cetera. So we built flashcards. We actually put the people's profile and picture on a flashcard, and we would prepare for their arrival.
Were they hard, tangible flashcards?
Yeah. We print it out. Yeah. And so we would have everybody on the team be ready to recognize, know something about them. Of course, on the room side, they were working really hard to, if they routinely requested a softer pillow, those were already in the room. If they ordered Diet Coke every time, we would just have a 6-pack of Diet Coke in their mini fridge if that maybe wasn't the norm, because we were a Pepsi place, as an example. So on the room side, getting kind of really granular and really and then the challenge was put on food and beverage, like, great, so they may or may not show up. They're probably going to show up. And then when they do, how are you guys going to work with that, right? And so we had to teach our people to engage in that system. So open ears, open eyes, spending more time at the table, really learning their preferences, and then plugging that in.
Yeah.
Let's plug that in. Let's use that information. And so that's called empowerment, right? That's really easy.
That's the one thing about reservations, like the form of reservations, that was so nice, is that you got a little bit of a cheat, because you knew who was coming in. You could spend an hour before service to like go through your reservation.
You could have a lineup and talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And that on the club side is the whole business.
Yeah.
But in fast-paced hotel, not a lot of people. Now, many more boutique, much more luxury hotels have been brought to the market, and so differentiating value props, there is a lot of work in that now. But back then, that was kind of novel at that level of a hotel. We weren't a Ritz-Carlton or a Four Seasons, right? We were definitely climbing up the quality level, but that just wasn't as common. But we really challenged our team to get to know them, and so we empowered our team. We said, here's a game. If you bring an idea, if you hear something, is it an anniversary? Is it a birthday? Is it the first time their kid's skiing? Is it, whatever that is, right? They're here for vacation. There is an event, right? There are things going on in their life we can recognize in that moment. If you are listening and paying attention and connecting, and you find something out, you bring it to the team, and we'll crowdsource. The entire team in the kitchen will crowdsource something. We're going to do something.
Yeah.
And what is that? Whether that's chocolates in their room, or a cake being made for them tomorrow, or, a private table that we can make arrangements at one of our sister properties, or a special experience on the mountain. What can we do to make this a special? And we're doing it.
Yeah.
It is the restaurant server in the hotel lobby restaurant that did that for them.
That's the part of this industry that I love.
That was amazing.
To do the little things, what can I do that's unexpected to really blow this person away? And when I think about that, like I got to work at a golf club at one point where I was just managing like this little like snacks shack on the 7th hole. And sometimes if I were to find out that somebody was only playing the back 9, but I knew what they wanted, I would get in my golf cart and I would find them on like the 9th or 11th hole and be like, I know you're not going to come by and see me today, but here's your Dr. Pepper and whatever.
That's awesome.
Like,
yeah, it's exactly
like
that,
and
right?
they're just like, oh, wow. Like
it's taking a breath and caring.
Exactly.
It's called hospitality.
Exactly.
And we love hospitality.
Exactly,
Since
man.
the pineapple is our icon.
That's the stuff that makes this industry really fun. And it's weird because, and I don't want to get too far off subject, but we live at a time right now where it looks like we're either going to go more in that direction or more in a direction of what you were talking about with just convenience and the path of least resistance and leaning on technology to streamline the process. I think there's going to be the high touch isn't going anywhere. I think that we forget that we need it. It's a part of being a human, and that we need to be seen and valued and loved and recognized. But I think what's going to happen is there's going to be tons of more opportunities for high touch experiences, but for like the common person, because we have all these technologies that we can leverage to mine data and to customize. I don't know where we're going. People get scared that we're going to lose that.
No, I think experiential and the focus on high touch experiential and high differentiated experiential experiences throughout the entire food and beverage, hospitality, hotel, resort world, all over the place. And I think you're starting to see this even in what we would consider environments that wouldn't be normal in. This is my quote. This is something I've been saying for a couple of years now. The mediocre middle is dead. Mm-hmm. If you are the mediocre middle, if you don't have a high value prop differentiator experience-based business, and you are just, call it a commodity, you're just lunch, you're just a bite, you're just food to grab on the way home, and you're not really therefore focused on convenience and streamline and multi touch point as far as how to get the food through multiple delivery points, curbside, lockers, high speed, predictability, and having that food ready and moving quickly. I think the middle is going to be gone. You're right. We are going to gravitate towards both. The one issue is that speed and convenience right now is going to be a focus, I think, as we see the Instacarts and the GoPuffs and these, real fast multi-venue delivery promise businesses, whether they all can live to the promise of 15 or 30 minutes and you can get everything. Walmart.com is starting to really integrate and do their own delivery, and there's some really cool stuff happening. I think the commodity and speed is going to be a big business. It's only going to get bigger, and I think experiential and unique atmosphere and service model and high touch and ultra niche personalization businesses in food and beverage are going to be very high growth and a lot of new unique opportunity there. And therefore, I think the mediocre middle is what dies.
Yeah.
Now that's not to say that mom and pop one-off restaurants in a neighborhood that have been there for a long time, there's sort of legacy there. And you see that a lot in the Northeast and certainly a lot of neighborhood-based communities. But I think that those will be fine in those one-off answers. But as a genre, the mediocre middle, just get up, make some food. Hopefully enough people buy enough food every day to keep the doors open. And there's just not a lot of focus or attention on the why and what and for who and where and when and where's the change? Because the other problem is if you're not evolving, you're dying. Yeah. Because now the world is just moving so much faster.
I mean, there's so much talk right now about streamlining the process and the path of least resistance and leveraging technology, and 100% yes, that's going to be a thing. But at the same time, I think there's going to be so much opportunity, and the word that you use is creating experiences.
Yep.
Because that market, I feel like just diversifying that market of creating experiences and incorporating that with food and beverage, because we all have to eat at the end of the day, right? But just hospitality, the business of warmth, generosity, giving, sharing, that is hospitality, and that market is going to be exploding, I think, as well. The high touch, 101 experiences, concierge type experiences are we haven't even begun to touch the surface on what's possible there.
No, I think there's a trickle down effect from the luxury and ultra luxury world, whether that's ultra luxury restaurant, hotel, resort, retail. I think the lessons are now trickling down to say, hey, you don't have to be everything to everybody. You can pick a lane and just do that really, really well and do it really uniquely and do it very consistently. And if you can personalize that to the individual, which, as we talked about earlier, data and technology, it's there. It's just whether or not you know how to use it and how to leverage it and turn it into action. I think that those lessons are now getting into what we consider a mainstream or scalable models can leverage that ideation, that theory.
So I do want to make sure we spend a little bit of time talking about what you learned during your time with the private golf clubs and what you were doing there, a couple of your experience, and then I really want to dive into Nurish and what you got going on and the backstory of Nurish. And one of the things I'm really trying to do here at Restaurant Unstoppable is challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
This traditional restaurant business model of just, your 10% profit margin. If you're doing 10%, somebody says that's good. Why do we have to accept that? The 1905 restaurant business model, right?
Yep.
So I'm really curious and pulling back the layers and Nurish. But before we get there, are there lessons learned? Did you evolve during this golf club, private club? Get into that exactly.
Yeah. So the last 10 years, the previous 5 of the last 10 years, really focused on opportunities in that environment, and those were 100% cultural turnarounds. So those were businesses that were either very stagnant for a very long time, or were actively losing exponentially more money day after day over the previous periods. And we went in and we've developed a system for ourselves in the consulting side to do an upfront evaluation between the secret shopping and the on-site tours, and really looking at the P&Ls and really interviewing the staff from management to all levels of the staff across the organization, and having a real good vision of what was really going on, and then developing a plan to change that, right? And it all comes down to moving the needle with people. Showing people you care, investing in those people, giving them a vision, giving them a goal, holding them accountable, but giving them the tools and resources to be successful. So we really looked at what is it that has made us successful as leaders, what has made the businesses we have engaged with successful, and it always comes back to the people. And so we really dug in deep into people and culture first. That's the answer. The metrics will come. The sales will come. The profitability will come. If your people care, they'll be less wasteful. If people care, they'll proudly promote and sell more. All of those things that I think are really well understood. But again, I think a lot of owner-operators particularly lose vision of that, lose sight of that, forget that early energy that they put out there that was what attracted people to their business, both as an employee and as a consumer. And I think we just kind of fizzle out and get flat, and we have to re-energize that. And so we got into that side of the business at scale, and we did a number of properties, and we proved that is the unlock, right? And so we're spending about 18 months per property, enacting a very specific plan to turn around the financial metrics as the measurement, but really making it very clear of how we were going to do that was through motivating the people.
Moving the needle with the people always results in financial needle moving.
100%.
So let's go back to this idea. You said things like helping create the vision, the goals, giving them the tools to execute, and getting people to care. So that's how. I'm assuming. Yeah. But let's get into some of the details. Like, really, how do you move the needle with people? Where does that all start?
You have to actually do what you say you're going to do. So
integrity.
Integrity.
It's the number one core value in Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
Yeah.
Is do what you say you're going to do. And that's for me.
Yeah.
All my core. Sorry, but keep going.
Empathy. And you said it earlier, and I smiled. Empathy. And quite frankly, I'm very, very happy. I bought several dozen of Gary Vaynerchuk's newest book, 12 and a half, because it is all about the EQ, right? The emotional intelligence, the emotional investment, because that's all that matters, to the point that if you really care about the people that work with and air quotes for you to as a team, this just goes back to team sports. You can use any analogy. Why are the most successful coaches in team sports so successful? If you listen to their interviews, they've never said the word I. It's always about the team and the collective, right? And so, we really, really focused on the human element. And it is about empathy. It's about expressing that I understand the pain. I understand the toxic environment. I understand what seems like a lack of care for the individual.
First, seek to understand
that, and do that, right? Yeah. Ask a lot of questions, and then don't make promises you can't keep. Don't make promises you're not going to be able to keep, through whatever financial restrictions. You can't just give everybody everything all at once.
That's a big
but that
one
there's
for
a
me.
plan. There is a plan.
That's a big one for me. Like, I think a lot of people. So this idea of being a con artist is basically leveraging the confidence that people put in you, right? You're manipulating them, or you're a bait and switch. But you build up confidence, and then once you get people's trust, they give you what you need, and you say, thanks, and you're out of there. I think a lot of people who get labeled being con artists are people who have the right intention.
Right.
They make promises. They want to do.
They just can't keep them.
But they underestimate what it takes to execute the promise. And this is my biggest fear. As somebody who makes promises, like, can I do this? Like, can I transform the world with a podcast, like a restaurant podcast? Like, am I going to be a con artist by accident? So how do you avoid becoming a con artist? How do you
say no?
Yeah.
So don't say yes every time, right? So down to the most micro promise. You have to know what you have time for. You have to know what your team is capable of at this moment. And sometimes the ideas are phenomenal, but the execution of those ideas are not possible at this time. And for a variety of reasons, or other strategy focuses, or there's really a process in place here, and we have to honor that process because we'll be so much better at executing on that idea when we're all ready, right? Yes, I think it's a great idea. Yes, I think it's going to make money. Yes, I think it makes sense for this business. But if we did it today, we may not succeed or be as successful at it. So micro promises kept, and letting people understand, look, it's not a no. It may just be not a right now. And almost every time I would say, somebody come in your office and say, I have this great idea. What if? And okay, great. Tell me about it. Cool. Can you go and work on, these are the 3 things I need to know to say yes. Can you go get a couple of other teammates and talk about it? Have a beer. I'll buy you guys lunch or go hang out and come back with an idea. Come back with a plan. Really empowering people to be a part of that process. Invite them to be a builder.
Help them
in
come
the team.
to the realization that it's a no.
And by the way, they're going to learn along the way.
Yeah.
You're teaching, actually, right? And you're showing them the structure. You're showing them the process.
Yeah. So what about getting people to care? You said a lot of what you're doing is just getting the people to care, and stopping the energy from fizzling out.
Yep.
So how do you do that? How do you get people to care?
Well, that's by those yeses. So when you strategically pick a yes and you go all in and you empower them to own it, then they care because they created the idea or they collaborated on the idea, whether it's a new form of service or a new menu item or a new outlet or, a new examples.
What do you mean by new outlet?
If we're gonna add a food truck to the golf course, right? Or we're gonna do a pop-up,
Virtual only or something.
a one-off experience. We created a lot of those one-off, wine pairing, beer pairing. If somebody really had a passion about something, we'd let them run with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't need to tell you what the cocktail menu needs to be. You're out there with the guest every day. You know what they like, and so go build a cocktail. Get 4 or 5 of you together. You're the lead bartender. Come up with a cocktail menu. Here's how you price it, and it just becomes a learning opportunity. If you're investing in your team and empowering your team, then they're going to give you their best because they're going to be really appreciative of the opportunity. They're going to want to shine. They're going to want to share that passion at the highest level, and they're going to bring you their best.
Yeah, and I'm constantly echoing Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and above your physiological needs like food and shelter, you need to feel security. But then after that, that's where the beautiful stuff starts to happen, and people just want to be seen and recognized.
Right.
They want to know that they're growing, and that's what you just mentioned right there. You're seeing them, you're recognizing them, you're saying, you know more than I do. What do you think? And you value their opinion. So now they're feeling like they belong, they're loved, they're valued, and then you're giving them the tools and resources and a track to grow.
And in the end, when it does happen, you have to recognize them and give them all of the credit.
Yeah, and that
as a leader, you
into-
take 0 credit.
So what is that tapping into?
So you're absolutely tapping into, well, I mean, it's not, ego's a bad word for that, but
self-actualization.
But you're really giving them the opportunity to feel the value, the worth, to ownership, the accountability of the entire thing.
I think it comes down to being tribal. I think that is at the end of the day, we evolved and grew into Homo sapien by living in small knit packs where we were the tribe dependent. We had to bring something to that tribe, a skill to that tribe, an ability to that tribe, so that tribe could go on. And if you were good at, maybe it was skinning something that the tribe killed, or it was cooking to something the tribe killed. But like if you brought a skill set to that tribe and you were valuable to the tribe saw you, they valued you, and you self-actualize. This is my purpose. This is my role. This is my lane. I'm needed. We won't survive without me. And if you can create micro tribes within your organizations where you're needed, where we all can't survive unless you are showing up and doing your job, like that is your self-actualization. That's my purpose.
Yep.
That's why I'm here.
Well, and I think it's the difference between surviving and thriving, right?
Yeah.
The business may be able to survive, but will it thrive? And will it create that environment where people want to stay? Come down to attrition and turnover and all the issues of the labor crisis today. This has always been a problem. Turnover in the restaurant industry was north of 100% in 2019. 2019 was the highest of a 12-year economic rocket ship that we had ever been on in the United States, at least. And if we can't, in that environment, the most cash flush environment, the most successful business environment that's ever existed in our country, we still have over 100% turnover in restaurant. That to me is really, really telling. That
what's wrong? I mean, actually not shelf that question. We're gonna come back to that.
Yeah.
But anything else we should learn or that we can garner from your time working with these golf clubs, or these private clubs or anything like that before we move on to Nurish? Or do you just want to
actually know your people, actually care about them as individuals, and ask them what their purpose is. What is your desires? Look, I know you're studying to be a nurse, a doctor, a pilot, all kinds of things, a biochemist. You're going to go on and do amazing things. But right here, right now, what do you need? What do you want to know more about? What are you here in hoping to learn that you can carry as a lesson in life that's going to help you later? And when they tell you that, give them what they need. actually invest in them as an individual, because they then, each of those individuals, as you said in the tribe, will have that value and that worth. They will come together and talk about it. They will all feel valued and worth, and that amplification that happens ultimately provides a much more enjoyable environment to spend time in for all of us. They're going to show up on time and in uniform, clean, pressed, and excited to be there, rather than when can I get out of here, right? It's just going to change the entire dynamic of the entire environment, and everybody's going to have a much better time, and the business results, again, will come as a part of that.
So I'm going to make a statement, and I'm curious if you agree with it or not, but do you think it's easier to go in and to create a big splash and to inject energy into the, it's fun to rejuvenate a culture and to add energy to a culture, but to actually, like how long can you maintain that hurrah, that
and I don't.
energy
And so the answer is I don't.
Okay.
I don't do it like that, right? Because if you do it like that, there's the whole like, oh yeah, all right, I'm looking at my time, I'm looking at the calendar, and they start a pool in the back office about how long this is going to last and whether you're really going to execute on any of the promises you've made. I think you start off much more humble, much more. I do it one-on-one. I walk into these businesses, they have 110, 130 employees. I actually sit down for 45 minutes to an hour with every single employee for the first 3 months I'm there. Right, so that was the model. And the model was to actually understand them, ask them a lot of the same questions, but also give them an opportunity to tell you. Because if you just open that floodgate and they tell you, there are trends. You're going to find the elements within the system that aren't working, that need to be touched first, and the things that are going to make the most impact. And then you do them authentically. You do them meaningfully. You actually care, and you actually do what you say you're going to do. Then everything else comes.
Yes,
it all is a self-fulfilling prophecy from there.
I guess where I'm going is it's one thing to go in and to rejuvenate, to bring energy to a culture, to bring it up. And I would say that is easier than actually sustaining that energy.
Sustainability comes from actual, authentic caring, that your motivation, your intent is so pure that it's going to last, one. And two, putting systems and processes in place that allow and encourage this well beyond you. So
this is where
people
I'm going.
can come 5 years from now and know there's a system.
Okay. So it's
to
one thing,
share.
Yeah, it's one thing to come in and say, this is our vision, these are our goals, this is who we are, these are our values. Yes, right? But then 6 months later, do you remember what you said your values are? Do you remember what you said the vision is? What systems and processes are you putting in place to resurface these cultural things? Because I think that's where people go wrong, is they say, this is who we are. This is what we give a fuck about. And then
stop talking about it.
Yeah.
So
what
you
are
build
those
it. You build it.
systems?
Yep. The systems are you build it into the daily, right?
Yeah.
So you have conversations every day. So the daily lineup, actually, every day, one of your core values is on the daily lineup, and there's an example of how to live the core value. So if your core value is connecting, we want to be connective. Here are ways you can connect with the guests, connect with your teammates, right? Things we don't do to break down that relationship, meaning we don't scream at each other from the front of the house to the back of the house across the service line, right? And we don't blame each other. We look at ways of fixing problems as a team. But you pick a core value every day of the week. So we had a daily lineup and a daily SOP binder. And so you would come in and you would open the SOP binder, and that was a way to very quickly convey to everybody what is a focus, what is something that we need to make sure everybody knows and everybody's on board and understands that system or that process.
So what's the standard operating procedure binder? Is it just a list of all the all of your standards, and do you just like start from the top and cycle through? Or?
So no, so for me, it's when you identify a reoccurring issue. If you have to constantly tell 10 employees out of 100 every day or every week the same information, then it needs to be built into the system. It needs to be built into the process. So you write an SOP and say, okay, everybody, I've heard from 10 people this week that they're doing it 10 different ways. They're doing whatever that is, making coffee, the order process, the entering. The kitchen's telling me they're seeing the same request, but they're seeing it 10 different ways. Let's all agree on the language we're going to use for that modifier. Let's create the modifier. Let's create the add X because, well, a lot of guests are asking for add X to this dish. Great. This is how we're going to handle that. And so they come in and they read it and go, oh, okay, that's the answer to the question. Sign off, great. And then on the daily lineup, it's just about I want to give. I want you to, we would pick an ingredient. We'd pick a menu item and an ingredient out of a menu item every day. And we do education. What is the ingredient? Where does it come from? Why is it in the dish? What does it do? We would quiz them on what does that taste like? Or does that bring a salt or a sweet? Does it bring an acid to the flavor? Really like invest in knowledge around that, right? But we'd have 5 or 6 things in a lineup, and your core value and how to live that core value today was part of it. Then on the accountability side, we would have weekly recognitions, monthly employee of the month, employee of the quarter, et cetera, right? But in that, the nomination forms were open to every employee every day. You could give a recognition. You could write a little slip and give a recognition. If you build in that the words in the core values, the words in your vision and mission statement, the things that you're focused on today or this week or this month, whether it's a new wine or a wine pairing or a new menu item or whatever that is, if you build that into the daily conversation, then everybody starts really, it's a self-fulfilling machine. It starts buzzing. It starts asking questions. It starts giving feedback.
Yeah.
There's a lot of feedback that managers and owners and leadership never hear. But if you're actually plugged in and you provide a conduit, you provide an avenue for them to communicate that, and you show them that when they do, you're going to do something with it.
Yep.
And you say, I can do something about that. Or I can't do something about that today, but I will later. It's just about making promises you can keep and really making that part of the daily communication language.
Yes. And there's 2 past episodes that come to mind listening to you speak, if my listeners want to go further into this. The first one, Hertz Schultze, we did, so at the Ritz-Carlton, they have 26 standards of excellence.
Yep.
And every day they go through one of those standards in order. When they hit the 26th day, they start back to number 1. And they just do exactly what you say. But if you want to listen to that and the significance of creating ritual, and this is where I'm going, is Mario Del Piero, another past guest on the show, another LA restaurateur with Mendocino Farms, talked about exactly what you're talking about, is a culture. Think about what a culture is. It's a society. It's a group of people that have the same values, the same beliefs, and in every culture there's rituals and there's language.
Yep.
Right? A way that things that we do daily or annually that are regular, things that we say every day that are unique to us. You build these things into your organization. It becomes a part of your DNA. So like, I think the example with Mendocino Farms is whenever they open, the first person in, the last person out, they say so. I can't remember what they say, but it's little things that you do when somebody comes in. They all scream like this saying, like, I can't remember. I think they all scream first person in, last person out.
Oh, that's cool.
But it's like a way to recognize that the first person is just as important as the last person.
Right.
So these are operational standards of excellence that we use language to reinforce those things. So it's cultural language and rituals baked into your organization. That's how you keep your culture going strong over time.
Yeah, that's the key to the sustainability piece, right? Because anybody can do it for day one. We work with a lot of emerging brands in our consulting practice today, helping new concepts and small group concepts grow. And we see all of that love and energy and excitement and passion and everything. The trick is if you don't find a way to systematize it, if you don't find a way to actually bake it into the language and to the process. And look, we can all think about Chick-fil-A. We can all think about great cultures and the great places to work with in hospitality or not. And when you start looking at the why do those work, it is the same reasoning that you've just laid out. They've found a way to build it into the process. So whether you got hired in the first 5 years of that business or the 50th year of that business, you feel like the first employee. You feel just as important as a part of the organization as the 5,000th employees as the 5th employee did. And that is the key to sustainability.
Yeah. The who we are, the why we are has to resurface every day, for sure. I'm loving this conversation, man. So I want to focus the rest of our conversation on Nurish, because that's your latest. So you have Kiwi restaurant partners.
Yep.
And then that's the mother company, and underneath that you have Nurish. And then you have I think 6 or 7 or 8 different brands that operate underneath that. But what is Nurish? When did the idea for Nurish first bubble up?
Yep. about 4 years ago, and here we are in 2022. So in late 2017, early 2018, I had an idea for a restaurant concept called Sandwich, SNDWCH, so sandwich without the vowels. And I, through our consulting practice, we had met a founder of a one-unit test concept called Mangia Organica, and his vision for that concept and my vision for Sandwich were basically the same thing, but his was in a Southern Italian Mediterranean healthful diet, and mine was an American carvery sandwich. But we both had a lot of the same beliefs around regional, seasonal, sustainable, organic, known and direct source ingredients. And so we said, hey, what if we partnered? Now we have two brands. By the way, they both were black and white logos, and so many things were very well aligned. And I said, okay, now we have two brands. And then we met and started working with some other people who became partners through a variety of activities. Now we're getting this group together, and when I start sharing the story, they say, well, I have an idea, or let's think about how many different types of genres, can we create that can follow the same system and process and promise and brand statement. And ultimately, Nurish was the last thing we came up with as a name. We really built this platform idea organically. So we ended up with the core group of executives that you see on the website today, who all have built new concepts or turned around very large businesses across a variety of genres, across a variety of business service models. And we said, let's take that collective knowledge and say, what is the restaurant of the future, right? What matters? Let's learn from Shake Shack. Let's learn from Sweet Greens. Let's learn from Blaze growing really, really fast in a short period of time. Let's learn from where the consumer's going. What is the new thing? And this is all before the pandemic. And quite frankly, on February 14th, 2020, right before the big lockdowns, we did our first pitch for an investment. And people looked at us on that day like we had 7 heads. Wait. Automation, robotics, eight concepts in one kitchen, and like this was like blowing people's minds, right? If you didn't know about ghost kitchens, which Massimo, the co-founder of Kitchen United, is on our team, and the first Kitchen United was open in Pasadena. If you had never experienced that, or some of this sounded really foreign, particularly to investors, right? Investment banks, et cetera, that weren't really looking at what the future models look like. So we said, we're going to build the model of the future that is both really pushing the envelope today, but that has built into it the ability to adapt and grow and change. We wanted interchangeability of brands. We wanted the adaption and adoption of new technologies, new systems, new venue models. And so we said, well, what's the most unique way to come out of the gate? So we're actually very, very close to bringing the physical plant of this to fruition in the next couple of months, and we're starting with pod kitchens. So we're taking the idea of a converted shipping container. Now, they're purpose-built today. We're not converting shipping containers. We're building them from the ground up. But we're going to put 8 brands in one 685 square foot box. We're going to make that box as systematically sustainable from a timing and a process, but also from an environmental. We're at about 85% self-sustaining from an energy. So we're using solar, water evaporation, water recirculation and capture. We're using sustainable ingredients, all the promises that I laid out with regional, seasonal, sustainable, organic, direct, and known source where possible. We are building not only from the food perspective sustainability, but from the physical environment that we're creating. So we're a no gas, no hood required, although we'll have a recirculating hood for scrubbing out, carbons and things from the atmosphere. But we are all induction and combi-therm oven. We saute fresh to order. We don't have to pre-make and pre-cook the actual food. We're not rethermalizing, right? But we're using the technology today to make a fantastic ingredient shine and be as healthful as possible across multiple genres of cuisine. We have Italian and Asian and American barbecue and American carvery sandwich. We have Indian concept in non-nation. So we're going to bring all those together in one platform.
So back in 2017, 2018, was your thought process we're going to start with just digital? We want it to be this one location that our first storefront is just the digital storefront?
No,
Were you there yet, or did the pandemic help influence that approach?
No, at the outset, even pre-pandemic, and the pandemic has only proven our hypothesis and our theory, because so many people are doing so many pieces of this or combinations of this, and some people are doing a lot of them. No, our hypothesis and theory was we use the term venue agnostic. We were 100% venue agnostic from day one. That's why
What do you mean by that? Venue agnostic?
we don't care where this goes. I can plug this in 365 square feet or 3,600 square feet or 30,000 square feet. I can make a food hall, and every brand can be a kiosk, which is sort of old school in my mind. It's not really the goal, but we can plug this in.
When you say this,
anywhere.
what do you mean?
Nurish. So a multi-brand, high technology, high sustainability, high healthfulness ingredient profile of brands in one spot. I mean, today most people are thinking of it as a micro food hall. One owner, one operator, one focus, everything going in the same direction with the same brand statement, the same belief system, the same vision and mission. We don't believe in, one building, 20 different operators, creating 60 different brands, et cetera. We want to have the control over the delivery of the entire system and the entire product. So we are built to evolve. We are going to build a fully robotic system. Today, we have the technology available to us.
The technology's there
to do it.
It's not a matter of when. It's a matter of, it is a matter of. It's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when. Like literally, all the technology that we need to execute what you're saying is around. It's here.
Yep.
It's just a matter of adoption. And It's a matter of, I think, making it normal. But one of the things I'm curious about. So, you have all these concepts operating out of one physical 600 square foot box.
Mm-hmm.
I know that part of your plan is from what I understood, when you onboard a concept, the idea is, okay, we're going to start just with Ghost Kitchen to see if you can pick up with momentum with Ghost Kitchen and delivery only. If that works, we're going to move you into a food court model where we're giving you it's a semi brick and mortar situation. It's a step in the right direction to brick and mortar. If that continues to build momentum, then we're going to give you your own standalone brick and mortar.
Potentially, yeah. So we built it to allow for any single concept to graduate, right? To sort of self-proof. I think some concepts will find their lane and do very, very well in one or two types of venues or deliveries type models.
Avenues meaning delivery only, pickup only, sit down only. Like these are what you mean by avenues. Different forms of consuming. Or like whether you're trying to just grab and go, or if you want it delivered, or if you want to pick it up, or if you want to sit down. Those are what you mean by avenues.
Right. And I'll tell you some of the motivation too, not to be too earthy crunchy about it, but the reality is I live in a community in North Los Angeles County that's about to be fully built out. They're about to literally run out of land. So the last things are being built, the last strip mall, the last standalone restaurant buildings, et cetera. And in my community, in the last 2 years, all I've seen is scrape a pad, put up a Taco Bell, scrape a pad, put up another Starbucks, scrape a pad, put up another Popeyes. In one little half-block street, there's this replication of these. The box is the same, right? They look identical. They just have a different skin on them. And I'm saying, look, how many people in one household all want Popeyes tonight? How many want, right? And so the idea of multi-brand is not new. It's definitely blown up in the pandemic. But how often am I going to go out of my way to go to a Sweet Greens or a Chop Stop for the salad, and then who's the vegan restaurant in this area, and really try to curate my culinary experience during the week every day? It's exhausting. I live it every day. My wife says, when is this thing going to be open in our neighborhood? I'm like, honey, very soon. But what we want to do is, from a sustainability standpoint, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that you have to get in a car or you have to order a delivery and you have to choose a single location, or if you choose multiples, it's multiple deliveries, and now you're just burning all kinds of fuels.
$50 later, and
let's consolidate this. Let's give what people what they want. Let's give them variety. Let's give them healthfulness within that variety. And let's be innovative. Let's change out brands. Let's change out the menu within brands on a structured rotation that will keep it interesting. But also let's do it in a very low impact way. What is the least impact we can make on the environment? The highest impact we can make on the farmer and rancher? How can we really help move the needle on people's health and give them better choices? Because those names of brands, look, I love a piece of fried chicken like anybody. I don't go to McDonald's. I don't go to Taco Bell necessarily. But I appreciate that, as a treat, as a unique, but on a daily when your only choice is literally Starbucks, Popeyes, Taco Bell, Panda Express, etc. Lots of fried, lots of oil, lots of fat, lots of, taking good ingredients and breaking them down to make them not so great for you.
30 years of leaning into quick and convenience in the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
We got ourselves in a really ugly place because
we think you can do craft.
Everything comes at a cost.
You can do craft fast. That's what we think. We think you can take high quality ingredients, treat them well, deliver them in a more healthful way, do it through lots of different types of cuisine genres that people are asking for, wanting, will learn and enjoy, and do them in one place so that there can be one order, multiple types of food for every family member, every person in the office, whatever that is, and do it in a high-tech, very convenient, very scalable way with the least impact on the environment.
Yeah.
Period.
So now I'm curious about logistics and how you're actually executing this. So you have upwards of 8 concepts in a 600, 700 square foot space. And at first thought, you're like, how can one small space handle so many different menus? But I'm curious, for each location, how many menu items are in each location?
Yeah,
or each brand.
Yep. So each brand is an average of 9 to 11 menu items. So they are consolidated, certainly, but the total mix is about 40 to 45 menu items between all the brands.
Well, that's where I was going with this, is the power of keeping one concept, one brand, simple, stupid, right?
Yep.
And when you only have 9 items on each menu, what's 9 times 8? 56, right? No, that's not right. 9 times 74? Wait, no, 72.
I'm not doing any math here.
Don't ask me to do math. This is embarrassing. But the idea is, you think about some older business models. Mexican restaurants come to mind. Italian restaurants come to mind, where you might have 150 options on that menu, and that's all coming out of one kitchen, right? So like the idea is like you're just taking these big. It's the same idea. It's like the same idea of how we were doing things, but you're slicing and dicing the offering in conceptualizing the offering, and like you're taking sections of the menu, and now that becomes a whole concept.
Yeah, I think of it as distillation, concentration, right? I want to do the 8 or 10 best things I can do that are going to give the best representation of that genre or that concept or that brand, and I want the option to change them as necessary, but I don't want the variety within that concept weighing down the entire system, right? From a logistical standpoint, from a financial standpoint, from a waste standpoint. We don't want waste. If a menu item is not performing well, we're going to change it, right? Yeah. If a brand is not doing well, we're going to change it. We don't want food waste. We don't want energy waste. We don't want to force something. And the beauty of this is that, nowadays, a concept is turned on and exists when it has a website, it's plugged onto your app, and it's in your point of sale, right? If you can run an ad on Facebook with a logo, you have a new concept. And so you can go live as long as the food's there.
So one of the other thoughts I have is in how you're executing this idea. I'm assuming that you're utilizing a lot of the same ingredients. You're cross utilizing the same ingredients in different concepts.
That's correct.
So, any advice on like how to do that well without how do you execute that and make it feel different?
Chicken is chicken unless it's different parts of the chicken, but. Everything starts with the menu. Whether it's old school or not, you design a restaurant around the menu. The menu dictates a lot of things, and you start with the menu. So when we start with a menu, we go big. We're like, hey, what are all the possibilities here? What are all the unique regionality dialects of this food that we can? Let's go big, and then you pare it down. And when you get down to, let's say your goal is 10 menu items and you're sitting on 18 that you think all are amazing, well, number one, you can rotate those in over time. That's great. So nobody has to lose out. But in looking at the ingredient profile, anytime you have a menu item, this is true for any restaurant. This is consulting 101, right? If you have any single menu item that is utilizing one or more ingredients that are only served in that menu item, you need to ask whether that menu item really has the value that you need it to, because those are items you're spending money on that there's going to be waste on, and if you don't pull that through on fast enough and in a timely enough manner that those ingredients themselves don't go bad, whatever the life shelf span and all that is, then that menu item may not have the value that you need it to be, and it may be dragging you down, financially, and certainly then also you look at the exact same scenario around prep, around time. How much time and energy does it take to make that one ingredient work within that one dish? And again, is that worth it? Because we really have to consider an amount of time and money, especially as labor is rightfully becoming more expensive. You have to think it. So you take each one of these sort of buckets across the whole impact. How does this collection of ingredients to make a menu item impact everything from workflow and prep timing and cost and product cost, et cetera? How does that all play, and then what can you charge for that item, and how many of those are you going to sell? And then you actually have to use real data, and if you're not looking at your P mix or your menu mix report, and you're not looking at your sales by half hour by menu item and by genre of the menu and by the brand on a pretty regular basis, at least monthly, for us it's weekly, if you're not really analyzing that deep that often, then you're allowing for waste. You're spending money and time and energy that may not have the value you think it does.
So aside from the conveniences to the consumer, which you pointed out, you believe the future is one household is going to want to order from 5 different concepts, and they want to have it delivered at once.
Correct.
Right? That's kind of like the market you're going after.
Correct.
I understood that correctly. So what are the operational, as far as cost analysis, as far as like what is it that's so appealing about this business model? Like, where are you making up loss, I guess is where I'm going. Like what are your percentages? How do you cut it up? What are your labor costs?
Yep.
What are your operational costs?
Yep.
Like what does this look like?
So we do it with a maximum of 4 humans per
Okay.
shift, on average 3. And so our labor costs are much lower than most. They're in the low to mid 20s. We consolidate our prep. So we do utilize a lot of ingredients just in different ways. And so we consolidate our prep through commissary. We outsource a fair bit of that as well.
So the idea of this is like, basically, say you need carrots. You're going to process a bunch of carrots, and then
so most
you're
restaurants
going to take those carrots and they're going to go into different homes.
Think about that. Most restaurants are going to have to buy a case of something. That's the minimum purchase size, is a case. Within that case, how much of that is viable for what you're doing with it? You take that off the top, and then you process that for 1 dish or 5 dishes. It doesn't matter what a traditional restaurant's doing. And then you hope to sell enough of those that when you have to cut more carrots tomorrow, you can either reutilize yesterday's carrots or you can't. So what we're saying is, how concentrated, how distilled, how many ways can we use that carrot that makes sense? And if it isn't going to, if we're not going to go through that case inside of its shelf life value, then is it really the right ingredient, and does that need to be in here? Now, the seasonality really helps with that, right? Seasonal ingredients you can get in smaller batches, you can get more frequently if you're buying them from farmers markets or regional farmers. You have a little bit more flexibility in that wasteful side of the business. But yeah, and by the way, to the point you made about multiple brands on one, everybody in the house gets what they want. Yes. But take that another step further is as a society, we also want to get our milk and diapers at the same time and in the same delivery. We want to get our pharmacy, because, I got to get in the car and I got to drive to the pharmacy. I got to drive to the grocery store. I got to, it's an hour and 15 minute tour at 6 o'clock or 5:30 when I get off of work, and the kids are screaming, husband's hangry. I got to get all this done and get home. And so we make kind of bad choices in that pressure pot,
Yeah.
right? And so we think that not only as a standalone adjacent to all these other things you need, but we know for a fact that installed as a part of that total solution package, whether it's inside of a grocery or inside of a large retailer like a Walmart, we know there is consolidation in this entire ecosystem, and whether that is in a retail visible physical presentation you can go experience yourself in person, or whether that's just within a mile of every household in America and it doesn't matter what the venue is. And that's why we say venue agnostic. My goal is, when we're at a point where I can do it just to say we did it, is I'm going to put a Nurish on an airplane. I'm going to put it on an Emirates, or because that's the kind of business it's probably, or I'm hoping Richard Branson and I become good friends, and we put it on a
Richard,
Virgin.
or if you're listening,
Yeah, let's put a
Troy
Nurish.
Troy wants to talk.
Let's put a Nurish kitchen and cook fresh food on an aircraft, because hey, no gas, no oil, no flame, low possibility of flame. So let's figure out how we can do that, Richard. But that's the point, though, is that this could be anywhere, in any venue presentation, in any collaborative collection of any set of brands.
So you're looking to put a Nourish in a box, like a storage container, or at a Walmart, or at a gas station, or at an airport, and you can plug and play this thing anywhere. Is what
Anywhere.
You're saying. And the convenience is that is now, if somebody orders Nourish but they also want diapers, it's all coming from the same place. That's
Correct.
kind of the thought process. One of the things you pointed out, I kind of want to get back. So I'm kind of assuming, based off of what I've learned, is that where Nourish is going to thrive is in cutting down on labor expense, because you're utilizing 4 people in 8 concepts at once. You're also looking to really lean heavy into technology,
Right.
and robotics, and just the digital technology that's happening. So if a standard labor expense is, say, 30%, like what, or 35%, like what is your labor expense?
Yeah, low to mid 20s.
Okay.
Because look, no matter what brick and mortar business you're running, a lot of fast food and others, they overstaff because of daily attrition, daily no shows and call outs and things like this. But for us, when you have a limited ingredient profile, you use multi-use utilization of a limited number of ingredients, you really reduce prep. If we outsource a fair bit of that prep to consolidate, or we do a lot of that prep centrally commissary wise, so we can do a lot of locations with the same labor.
Yeah.
You're not replicating that labor every location. That's
Yeah.
really the inefficiency that most restaurants are subject to today, which Ghost Kitchens has been as a model, has been kind of this theory and test place. There are people that pay to be in a ghost kitchen just to use it as a commissary. Great. If it can have a point of access and we can do delivery out of there and we do some sales out of there, great. But a lot of people have looked for these environments to start to consolidate. If you've got 3, 4, 5 restaurants, there's absolutely no reason to replicate the entire human capital system in every restaurant.
Yeah. So if you're making up 10 to 15 points on labor, where is that going? Is that going towards the higher cost of using organic ingredients? Is some of it going there, or is it going to a lot of that going towards profit?
So we're certainly reinvesting, right? Our promise is, one of our big promises is that we want to put cleaner, healthier food options closer to more people that don't have them. And in my community, it is quite an upscale, affluent type suburban community. And the fact that our choices are fried food and Taco Bell, or fried chicken and Taco Bell, we know that higher quality, accessible, healthful foods are not available in a lot of lower income communities that, or remote communities that just they're not giving those choices. They really is the Sonic or Rally's or whatever is the only sort of restaurant within miles that's not a mom and pop, Mexican or Italian restaurant. Excuse me. So we actually are going to be reinvesting those, what we'll call them excessive profits, those additional profits above the normal traditional model, in putting Nurish locations in those communities and using them as a platform to raise the community, not just provide better, healthier, cleaner food to more people, but to actually use them as an educational platform, to use them as a transformational platform to give new skills to those communities. And that's true for anywhere. We intend to do that. One thing we haven't talked about, it's not really overtly obvious in our system, is that we're leaning heavily into vertical farming. So we've partnered with both Babylon Farms and Freight Farms to either containerize vertical farms on site with our pod kitchen model, or to have scalable vertical farms within a brick and mortar or a central commissary where we're actually growing a lot of our own leafy greens and some of our vegetables. And so we want to use that also as a platform for educational. It's all the stems, right? It is algorithms with the app, but it is understanding growth, rotation, and planting and water and hydroponics, et cetera, aeroponics, all of those elements. Those are all pieces of opportunity to share and educate the community, your consumer, but also kids within the community, and do skills upskilling and retraining for new jobs. And so we see it as a really mission-driven platform to transform all communities. And if it will work in that community and a high affluent suburban community with poor food options, it can really work anywhere. And the scalability of the platform allows us to go wherever it is needed at the end of the day.
For people who are listening and getting excited about what you're sharing and maybe want to replicate this, I mean, there's a part of me that wants I have some questions about, maybe I'm trying to poke holes in your idea.
Oh, I love it. No, we need to be challenged.
But one of the things that I know are that's beneficial about keeping it simple, stupid, right?
Yep.
One of the reasons why you only see nine menu items it's normal to see 9 options on the menu today is because we know that that's a really easy path to train people to keep your less food in off shelves and in refrigerators, and it's just, you keep your overhead low, cost low, easier to train people on doing a few things really well than it is to have a massive menu.
Yeah. So
now you have 4 people that you're training on 8 different menus that's constantly changing. Do you see that being a challenge for operation? You're basically going back to that massive complex menu option again with 4 people. Is that going to be a challenge in today's workforce to train 4 people on 8 different menus that's constantly changing with new concepts?
So this is one of the lessons I learned from private clubs, is when you're in, especially the higher end private clubs, that the food variety and changeability is very important, because those folks who are members tend to eat there a lot, right?
Yeah.
So they can only eat the same thing so many times in a row. Seasonality doesn't mean you're changing the entire menu. It means you're taking a menu item concept and you're just evolving that item to utilize a new mix of ingredients. You're making a sandwich, you're making a soup, you're making a salad, you're making a chicken entree, but its profile is changing. It's inherently the same.
Still a chicken breast
thing. It's still a chicken breast. It's still
but it's going to be with other ingredients that are available at that time.
Correct. Okay. So we're not re-engineering, retrying, rebuilding the entire thing all the time. And so if you know how, and we have distilled this down to essentially, it either goes in a combi therm oven to toast, roast, bake, or it goes into a saute and into a bowl. So it's a rice bowl, it's a noodle bowl, it's a salad, or it's a soup, essentially. And so in that regard, we've really simplified it. Or a sandwich, right? And building a sandwich is building a sandwich.
It's building a salad with 2 pieces of bread.
If you can follow ABC 1, 2, 3, you're gonna get it. So it's understanding the fundamentals. And look, any line cook in the world understands the fundamentals of the systems, the process.
Yeah.
I'm sauteing this, I'm grilling this, I'm flat ironing this, I'm sticking this in an oven. We're going to reduce the number of cooking elements because we don't have fryers, we don't have griddles, right? We are using higher technology, more stable technology, I think cleaner and healthier technology uses to make better versions of those foods. And if you understand how to utilize the tools, you can make anything. And all we have to do is make a decision on what ingredients in what combination at what volume. That's just a recipe.
So if I'm a consumer and I'm walking up to one of your containers,
Yep.
right, the shipping containers, am I walking up to one window that has 8 brands 8 menus behind the counter?
The box is called Nourish. That's
Okay.
actually when I said we came up with the word Nourish last. I said, great, guys, we've created 8 brands.
Thank you for correcting.
I'm going to go rent a brick and mortar space on the corner of A Street and Main Street. What's the sign outside say? So that's how we came up with Nourish. And Nourish really, to us, really explains it, right? Now, we are going to represent the brands, whether on the window or certainly under the Nourish sign. We do have to educate the consumer, but not unlike a ghost kitchen or any other multi-brand environment. People will understand pretty quickly this is essentially a micro food hall, that all of the food follows the same rule set. They're making a promise to me as a consumer. This is the more healthful version of that genre. Oh, and by the way, I can get multiple types of food. That's great. But we're removing all friction. We have our own app developed, built and wonderful. You can do all of it into one basket, one delivery, et cetera. You can order online if you're on a desktop or any other platform like that. You can do curbside. You can do pickup. We will have a drive-up window for pickup. I don't anticipate doing a true drive-through because this is a little bit craftier production of food. So we don't want to make a promise that you're going to sit in a drive-through for 3 minutes and get your food, but it will certainly be within 5 to 7 or 8 minutes on the outside. But we're gonna, food lockers. We already have sourced a robotic server that can go from interior to exterior. That actually was surprising to me that's actually a difficult problem to solve because of the sensors that they actually use. But we are going to get you your food any way you want it, anywhere you want it, as quickly but done as consistently and as healthfully as possible.
Can I get it on DoorDash or Uber?
You will be able to, absolutely.
And it doesn't show up as Nourish, though. It shows up as the
No, in that
concepts of
case,
it.
they are going to show up as the individual brands. That is going to be a challenge when you don't have control over that platform, right? So we're really going to be focused on testing native delivery. We're going to do our own delivery within 1.5 mile to 2 mile radius, depending on the community, right? And or white label, direct delivery partners that act on our behalf. We outsource that maybe. And then, but we are going to do a lot of marketing and storytelling around who we are, what we are, where you find us, what we offer you, what our brand promise is, what that experience expectation is. And quite frankly, I don't subscribe to the value of the third-party delivery partners as a marketing. I think that those dollars, that even if you negotiate that down and do a really good job of getting a lower percentage there, I think that as a spend of marketing dollars is much less efficient than how I can deploy those same dollars to tell my story to my consumer more directly.
Here's the thing. Once people start using those third-party platforms, they're 80% plus more likely to stay with those platforms than they are to get off those platforms, because there's habits associated with those platforms, and it's not easy to break consumer habit. You have less than a 20% chance to offboard people or to migrate people from ordering through Uber or whatever, your DoorDash, whatever it is. They're not going to break habits to come support you. And unfortunately, that's what the data is showing. Like, unless we really start to educate the consumer and we start tapping into that conscious capitalism of like, you're really screwing us over, consumer, when you don't let us get the maximum profit that we can possibly get from feeding you. So as I'm saying this, what's going through your mind?
What's going through my mind is we are a community-based, purpose-driven business model, and I come from a place of making deep connections with the people that I serve. And so with that intent and that purpose-driven design, I don't need third-party platforms to try to find me people.
Muck it up.
We're gonna tell. We have a lot of story to tell. We have a lot of pieces within the story. Every brand, every ingredient, every farmer, every rancher, every region, every community we're serving, and the people that are working within our system and their stories. We have a lot of ways to connect with folks and tell them that we exist. And I think the delivery of that is very close to being a commodity. I think there's enough people that know how to do that really, really well in the digital realm. And oh, by the way, there are still some old school ways to communicate and have great events and have other reasons people find you that are so much tell your story and make connection at such a higher level that I don't think getting the word out of what we are, who we are, and who we're for is going to be the hard part.
Yeah.
I think the throttling of how much we tell in how many places and how loud we can be is going to be the challenge.
Yeah.
We're not short on story to tell.
And I know technology is a big part of your business plan, leaning on technology to streamline and to really probably cut back on your labor expenses, I'm assuming too. What is the technology that you're working with that has you really excited, that you think all my listeners should be aware of to kind of replicate the efficiencies that you're looking to maximize?
Yeah, so you saw Sweet Greens buy a company called Spice this last year.
I've been trying to get them on the show.
Yeah.
Ever since Sweet Greens sucked them up. Their lips are sealed.
I think that's been put into
no offense, Sweet Greens, but we're trying to transform the industry. If you want to make an impact on the industry, fucking share your knowledge. I'm sorry.
So,
pardon me, Sweet Greens.
So I'm going to fucking share my knowledge.
Yeah, thank you.
Their competitor, there's only about a handful. I think there's about 5 companies in the world that are basically building a similar version of that machine. And at the end of the day, it's an assembly robot, right? It's just taking a certain mix of ingredients, putting them into some platform to heat or mix them. Yeah, they're using
heat.
Yeah, cooking kettles, the rotating cooking kettles, and that can be do for cold and hot. You can mix a salad that way. You can mix a cold bowl that way.
Nerds over at MIT figured it out.
Yeah. So there's another company called Bolt-On that we have a relationship with and have designed and are working currently between them and actually Miso Robotics with Flippy as well. Now Flippy is Flippy, Wingy, and Chippy. They're
Who's Flippy?
Flippy's the robot that flips burgers. Going to go into 100 White Castles and flip burgers and does fries.
It's using infrared to
it's really a brain and an eye, right? It's really an AI system that has an eye.
Yeah.
And so it knows what is in what place and is just moving things around for you to a spec. And they've made different versions of that to do different types of food. It's mostly frying and grilling, right?
So far we mentioned Bolts, we mentioned Flippy.
Those two together are our primary focus right now.
Is Miso responsible for
Miso
Bolt?
Robotics owns Flippy.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the arm.
Okay. And Bolt is separate.
Bolt-On is a different company.
Got it.
Yeah, and that model is imagine a suburban size, maybe a little bit smaller than a suburban size box, that within that box there's a refrigeration system, there is the cooking system, and then there's the assembly system that gets it from refrigeration to cooking or putting it into a bowl if it's a cold item. And so we are working with them to take our recipes and basically systematically, build them. And one of the things I really like about Bolt-On is they use a cartridge system. You take all of your raw ingredients and you put them into this, about 6 or 8 ounce size cartridge that is, for all intents and purposes, hermetically sealed. It's a low oxygen vacuum environment, so the ingredients stay fresher longer, and if they're properly refrigerated within the cartridge system. And it just basically takes all the cartridges needed to build that recipe. And in order, let's say it's a chicken rice bowl, right? The rice is already made, and so it's going to take the chicken, put it in the kettle cooker. It's going to cook it. It's going to add the sauce or healthful oil or whatever to get that chicken cooked, and then while it's cooking, it'll know when to add the first vegetable, second vegetable, all the vegetables.
So this is why you only need 4 people.
This is why you only need 4 people. This thing will take all the raw ingredients and make you a chopped chicken rice bowl, or a noodle bowl, anything like that.
To answer my question, you're not gonna have to really be too concerned about training, because I'm making assumptions here, but I'm assuming those 4 people their job is probably mostly going to be to feed the machines.
Yes.
The ingredients, the raw ingredients they need. You're basically keeping your machine stocked.
In the Bolt-On version of Nurish, it's probably 1 human. Okay. It's probably 1 person, because for right now, making a sandwich is the unlock. And there are some companies out there, the machines are currently in the $1 million+ range, but they're out there where actually 2 arms work together to make a sandwich. So it's coming. But for right now, there is the person who will maintain the machine, monitor all the systems, fill the machine, and then for now, make the sandwich. But also, look, I don't want to ever eliminate the hospitality element. There needs to be a human element. There needs to be somebody to ask questions. I hate going to a website and I can't find a phone number, and if I call a phone number, nobody answers it. I've got questions your website can't answer and your chatbot is not going to anticipate.
There's job security for people who are either artists or who are emotionally intelligent. unfortunately, it's going to get tough for the technicians.
Yeah.
The technicians are going to be the ones that are unfortunately scary. Like, those are the people that robotics and technology are likely going to be replaced first.
There's going to be a lot of opportunity to train up people, take them from in front of a hot fryer, a hot grill, flame, smoke, everything all day, and train them to do different jobs, to train them to maintain and become refrigeration techs. And this
is going to create a lot of higher paying, more secure jobs for people. There is
absolutely.
That. But not everybody is a technician.
No, not everybody is.
But I think there's going to be opportunities for. I think there's a place for artists because of that creative element, and like machines still can't create. They're just following through orders.
This is just assembly.
Exactly. So, you mentioned Bolt. Was it
Bolt-on?
Bolt-on. We also mentioned Miso, which you said was Flippy, and two other.
Flippy is Flippy. It's Miso Robotics makes
a
multi-use arm that can do tasks, and it uses a brain and an eye, a set of eyes.
So it's one arm that's doing all these things.
It's one technology. They've just Flippy is the burger flipping fry making brand name they've given that for that purpose.
Functionality.
Yeah, and it's cute because they did a deal with Buffalo Wild Wings, and so they call it Wingy because it's frying wings.
Got it.
And now, just came out this week, they have a new test going with Chipotle to do their chips, to actually fry their chips, because Chipotle takes and makes fresh chips, tortilla chips. And so now they're calling that Chippy. It's the same thing.
It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
Got it.
What's it doing? And add a Y to it.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you're using Bolt-on and Flippy to be the majority of your production.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct.
What about digitally? What tools and services are you leveraging?
Yeah, so we're real big fans of data and data analytics. And so consumer sentiment monitoring with things like Yext. There's a company that not a lot of people know about, but a couple of the bigger franchise groups use, called Hypersonics. And so that's data analytic and sort of smart brain technology to tell you, here's all the data, here's what it means to turn big data into actionable intelligence. So those are a couple of things that we're real excited about working with as we scale. And certainly we have the opportunity to bring these to some of our consulting clients as well and test them out as well. So
that was Yext, which is the consumer monitoring. What was the other one?
Hypersonics.
Hypersonics
is data analytics. So they take all of your intelligent data, all of your consumer actions, the sales data, all your P&L data, right? And they turn it into actionable. They tell you what it means. It gives it to you really in infographics, and so you can make real decisions in real time. Every morning, the executives and leadership can look at the different pieces they're responsible for and understand, okay, we upped this menu item 5 cents yesterday. Here is the exact before and after. The items are going down because that's we've exceeded the value prop of that by price point, et cetera. So big data analytics turning into actionable intelligence.
Can you believe we've been almost talking for 2 hours?
That's
crazy
incredible.
How fast it goes by, man. I'm really loving the conversation. Anything we haven't mentioned regarding Nurish, like elements, technologies, pieces of it that we need to understand before moving on?
No, I think we've covered it pretty good. I think we've covered the core elements that really matter to make it, I think, stand out. And again, I don't think we're doing anything that other people haven't thought of or that other people aren't trying. I do think we're putting it together in a package with a mindset of lifting the humans up, connecting with humans better, bringing more healthful variety to people, supporting the farmer, and looking at creating new jobs through vertical farming on-site or near-site. I think we're kind of putting a whole package together a little bit differently with a different intent mindset than maybe a lot of folks. By the way, it happens to be more profitable than any other restaurant model we've seen, for the most part. And so there is that upside, but that just gives us more sustainability, more scalability.
I do want to talk about the future of the industry. I know I was told to make sure to talk to you about the metaverse. But before we move on to that, of what's the futures looks like and what you think the industry needs to change, what about the industry needs to change, I'm curious if we are interested in bringing to you our concept.
Yes.
If we think our concept might work in your model, how do we approach you? How do we, or maybe we want to invest?
Troy
or
at
whatever.
krpusa.com. Just email me. Just
And
reach
what are you
out.
looking for when people reach out to you?
Yeah, so I mean, right now we're not air quotes looking, but we have had multiple conversations with some existing brands. We have some clients that have brands that we think fit. We are looking to help people mold their existing future models into bring more of these elements to bear with them. We're just looking for people that believe the same thing for the same reason. If your intent is, I've got a great concept and a great idea or a great brand, or and I'm already executing or not, I think this model really, really makes sense. We're not here to own that worldwide. We don't have an exclusive on what I've just described to you. We'll help you do it for you, or if it makes sense and it works within our ecosystem and we can have you can bring that to the table, then we're excited to talk about it.
So the helping you do that for you, that's more of the Kiwi partners.
Yeah.
Where you're there to consult and help other people do this.
Yeah, we're not trying to monopolize this mindset.
And that's the mentality I think most people need. Have a mindset of abundance.
Yeah.
If you're trying to make change, if you're doing things that are sustainable, that are going to be beneficial to society, share your knowledge. Let's transform the industry. Let's expedite this process of change.
I agree.
So on that note of change, the future, I gotta say, Jason Berkowitz said, don't talk to Troy and not have him talk about the metaverse, which is something that I haven't really touched on yet on the show. So what is the metaverse for the listeners who haven't really looked into what that is?
If you've ever played a live multiplayer video game on the internet, that's a metaverse, right? It's a purpose-built world.
World of Warcraft. Is it
Sure. Yeah. Any of the shooter games, even the football or sports games. If you're interacting live with people from all around the world through a central server type environment, that is a metaverse. And so that concept is just getting out beyond gamification and is becoming more readily used in other industries. I can tell you one of our businesses is in we have a partnership and have an EXP Realty brokerage, and so we're in the real estate side to help our customers and ourselves service our own real estate needs. And so EXP is a digital only brokerage. When it came to the market, it didn't build your local Remax or your local Keller Williams store that you would walk into and meet a realtor and sign your paperwork. It's all digital first. And so their corporate world headquarters is the only office there is, and it's fully digital in a metaverse that they built of their own. They built their own world, EXP world environment. And, that was a huge eye-opener for me about 4 years ago when I could click into an app, essentially, go into their server, and I could be greeted by a concierge who could help me find where I needed to go. Or if I knew where I needed to go, I needed a problem solved or a question answered or a form or help with something within that ecosystem, I could click on that space and be transported virtually to that desk, office, person's environment. And yes, there are avatars, and it's very gamified in that way, and it's this false world that they've created visually. But at the end of the day, I didn't have to pick up the phone and wait on the phone for 4 hours or hour or whatever it is, depending on who you're calling. I didn't have to send an email and wait for somebody who gets 800 emails a day to answer my email. I literally could step up and maybe there's one or two people in front of me, but you get your question answered so fast. You get what you need so instantly in that environment that one person can service an entire state. There's 5 or 6 people that service the entire state of California, thousands, tens of thousands of realtors. They're able to service through this centralized online virtual world. And so that's an example of a metaverse. And now what we're starting to see, obviously, with Facebook developing Meta and many, many other projects, many other people building singular purpose. There's metaverses being built for artists, music artists, visual artists to manage and work in a community. These are just community centers essentially on the online world. In the restaurant space, it's very, very interesting because we are moving to this more things in one building for a singular point of access, singular delivery, and we're doing that currently by ordering on an app manually with our phones. Some companies have done better to consolidate that and make that less effort. But how many taps does that take? How long does that take? We're moving towards a audio world. We're moving towards speaking what you need to the Alexas and whatnot of the world.
I never want to use my thumbs to communicate ever again.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Right. So now the world has carpal tunnel at scale. So we're going to eliminate that. So because you can do that, and because the visual representation of this is coming from the digital world and interacting with the physical world through AR, augmented reality, and yes, of course, there's virtual reality with the giant goggles, but those are all the first virtual reality projection contact lens is going into trials this year to be approved. So we'll be sticking a contact in our eye that is a TV. And so we'll be able to move with our eye actions, the cursor and things like that, and it will recognize hand movements and things like that. We're going to a place where we can access the information. So I'm hungry. Hey Alexa, or hey Meta, or whatever, or blink, 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 and I ordered my food.
Yeah.
So we are going, my concern when we talk about the mediocre middle, my concern is if you're running a restaurant and you're spinning your pizzas and you're flipping your burgers today, in what world do you have time to even go learn any of this stuff and even be exposed or know about it? So is your culture allowing for your younger team members to tell you the way the world's coming? Because they've already been doing it, right? They've been buying products on Pinterest and Snapchat
not
for
hard
years.
To figure out,
right?
Like, most dummies can figure this out. Like,
and there's companies coming that are going to do it for you. There's a new company called Devour, and they're building the commoditizing this process and system to make it as easy as a few clicks here and there. And that's what all of Facebook's trying to do. Facebook's trying to build a world and an environment where they essentially do all that work for you.
So I actually made this comment a couple times recently. It's this idea that technology is expanding at an exponential rate, improving at an exponential rate. But what we forget is people don't evolve at an exponential rate.
Right.
And I think that we forget that the human variable is going to serve as a governor, a firewall, that, like, what's the point of having this exponential technology if the human can't interface with it, right? So you're seeing this with Elon Musk trying to figure out how to
terrifying
AI with the brain, just and what you're talking about with, like, I think the future of technology is how do we look at humans and the evolution of humans, and how do we get technology to coexist and take the path of least resistance to evolve around this governor, the human, of this thing that can't evolve at the same rate. So it's going to be interesting. I think, like, it's going to be, I don't know, I think the future, there's a lot of money in the study of us and how we work in anthropology, and I think that the answers to our future is in looking to our past and figuring out where we came from and what we are and how we evolved and how we go with the grain, right? Because we're not going to change overnight. And this is one thing that doesn't come up a lot into this side. For people listening to all the crazy noises, we are in a brewery right now. We're actually going to be talking to Sed Moses in a little bit. They're starting to open things up. There's pinball behind me, so you guys can hear.
There's some fun games. I think we're going to go do some skee ball after this.
Yeah, so this has been a great conversation. Before we go to the speed round, I do want to ask you, what do you think is broken with the industry or could be improved with the industry? So our mission statement is to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. How do you think the industry needs to transform?
We need to collaborate. The pandemic really helped with that when people came together under stress and pressure to create the independent hospitality coalitions and other organizations or other, you saw people create co-ops around delivery to get around these very high cost third-party delivery solutions. I think collaboration, we've all been in our own bubble as generally, especially if you're a 1 to 3 or 5 store operator, even a 10 store operator, you probably haven't done a lot of collaboration. You probably haven't spent a lot of time with your contemporaries. And I see that starting to change, and that needs to change much faster and at much higher scale. And we're seeing it. I think we're seeing a lot of interest and excitement. Certainly things like metaverses and community environments where we can come together. Podcasts are amazing because you can be slicing onions right now and listening to this
and learning
and being exposed.
A big challenge for the restaurant industry is that, like, you couldn't get away and sit at a computer and watch a video or read a book, or, like, we didn't have time to we were so head down in this industry, working 60, 70-hour weeks. That's the normal. When do you have time to learn and to grow? You're beat at the end of the day. You don't want to go home and read a book after a 14-hour shift. Who's going to do that?
There is a mindset piece to that, and that is working on your business rather than in your business. At some point, you may have to take the hit, step back, hire that person that costs you the money that you would have paid yourself in doing that role, and really understand that in order for your business to not only grow or replicate potentially, but actually be relevant and be here in 5 years, you have to at least start to understand ways that things are changing, because the consumer is driving the demand and technology is meeting the problem. They're meeting the demand. And if that means 15 minutes that you can get all your groceries, pharmacy, and food because you just realized what time it was and you need, you've got to find a way. No, if you're an independent restaurateur, do you need to open a metaverse storefront restaurant today? No. Are you going to be seeing people do that? Yes. And there's always pioneers. Look, the cell phone was around for 30-something years before Steve Jobs stood on a stage and said, you can touch a glass screen, and now it's a computer instead of a phone. You're right. We don't move at the speed of technology. The human behavior doesn't. But we are becoming more accustomed to instant solution and instant problem solving and instant learning. I mean, learning is one of the biggest businesses online, right?
Yeah.
And so I do think that we are evolving, at least in the speed and convenience and scale point of view. So I think it's going to be interesting.
But
I think
to prove your point,
to
to come full circle, it's the world. The restaurant world has been more complex than ever before. You need to be an expert at more than ever before, and you can't do it alone. You have to collaborate. You have to break down your walls and realize that I can go much further with a group of people who are experts than I could. I might be able to get there faster by myself or to a certain point, but I'll get nowhere as far as if I were to collaborate and to lean on the strengths of other people. And I love it when my guests reinforce the core values of Restaurant Unstoppable. That is the 5th core value. We collaborate. So I love that. You already mentioned we communicate. You mentioned the importance of communication earlier, and you also mentioned integrity. So.
And that's all by it just came organically.
Yeah, man.
I didn't study the homework or anything.
We're back, and the first question I have for you is, what is your it factor, a habit, a trait, a characteristic you believe most contributes to your success?
Empathy.
What is your biggest weakness?
Loud voice, overpowering.
Great for podcasting.
Yeah.
What is one thing you ask when you're looking to hire, when you're building your team? What are you looking for?
I'm looking for somebody to ask questions.
What kind of questions do you like?
I want them to want to know what we're about, why we do what we do, why we do it the way we do it. It is a two-way conversation. I want interviewees to actually be the interviewers.
Yeah. What is your biggest challenge today?
Capital. There's a lot of really cool stuff going on, and there's a lot of people getting a lot of money for things just for the sake of getting money for them, and that part drives me nuts when you have great ideas and you know it works and you can prove it works. So
if you have money and you want to give it to Troy, say your email one more time.
Troy@krpusa.com. Let's go change the world.
What is one code of conduct or behavior you teach your team or teams in the past? Core value.
Self-awareness. Self-awareness. You got to have it.
That's the peak of emotional intelligence. A lot of people are always talking about emotional intelligence. They always talk about like understanding the other person, but really, the next level emotional intelligence is: do you understand yourself? Are you self-aware?
And what you're projecting and how you're projecting it, and what the perception of that projection might possibly be, and how are you going to throttle or tune that to ensure that the outcome is what you want.
I love it. Share one uncommon standard of service or a way that you've taught your team to go above and beyond what's expected.
It is very uncommon to ask servers or people in the hospitality industry to slow down and actually connect as a human on a human level with their customer, with their client, to make it a relationship. And so we think that's very uncommon, and we think that is an unlock to greater loyalty, greater understanding, and developing a more purposeful product ultimately for the consumer that is choosing your business.
What is one book that's a must read to make us a better person or restaurant operator?
Old school, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. New school, I'm big on Gary V's 12 and a half.
I haven't read that one yet.
It's incredible, and I'm sorry I didn't bring you one. I will send you one, I promise.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that. I'm hopefully going to be connecting with Gary V's partners over at Flyfish Club real soon. So
they're cool guys.
Yeah, I can't wait to connect with them. What is one thing you feel restaurateurs don't do well enough or often enough?
They don't take their head out of the sand. They don't peek up and look around and realize that things around them have changed.
Faster than ever before.
Just what we talked about.
Yep. Name one service you've hired or outsourced.
Certainly marketing, realizing that that is an arena that moves very, very quickly, adapts very quickly. The platforms that you want to communicate through are ever changing. And so something that, I think a small business person is used to trying to communicate themselves, to own their brand, to tell their own story. I think we believe that there are people that do that much, much better. As long as you maintain connectivity and communicate very clearly what the message is meant to be, let them do the work.
So this question is about asking or helping good people connect with good people. So who is a company you're going to for your marketing?
So we are trying a lot of different ones, actually. I think different companies do different things for different people, and because we have a client base in the consulting side, and because we're trying to build something new, we're actually testing a lot and trying new things.
Is there one product that's been outstanding so far?
Nothing beyond. Okay, yeah, I will say this. I'm a big fan as long as it remains physically capable of being relevant, and that is geofencing.
Okay.
I believe that if you own a sandwich shop, you should geofence not only your own sandwich shop so you know a little bit about who's coming and going. And there's some great companies doing other technologies like that. But I like geofencing the competition and or other like businesses that aren't directly competitors in your genre, but are where your consumer is, so you understand the behavior of your consumer.
If I want to learn more about geofencing, who do I go to?
There's a bunch of companies out there. We've used some large ones. CBS Radio has a company, but there's a company called MNI, Meredith Corporation. It's a very big publisher. They have a digital business. And so basically all of your major radio station and advertising providers, as well as all the big publishers out there, they've been collecting data on consumers for the entirety of their existence, and they leverage that data through products. Digital products particularly are big today. Yeah. So Meredith Corporation, MNI, is their digital product, and there's others like that. If you just search geofence marketing, you'll get a lot of folks that have that capability today.
And that's Mike November India, MNI, Meredith Corporation.
You got it.
Okay. What is one piece of technology you've recently, we talked a lot about technology, but if there's one piece of technology that really excites you, what is it?
The smartphone in your pocket that allows you to tell your story, your way, anytime, any place, as often and across as many platforms as you'd like. The smartphone is the most powerful piece of technology we have in small business or in business in general to do a lot of fantastic things, and you can do it from anywhere at any time. So really, I will give the credit to Sean Walchef of Cali BBQ Media and Cali BBQ San Diego Barbecue Brick and Mortar. He tells, smartphone storytelling, and we all need to do more of it and better at it. But I'm a big fan of how versatile that smartphone can be in as an education platform for yourself and as an information sharing platform to others.
It is definitely a game changer. I have some thoughts on that, but I'll save them for another time. If you got the news that you'd be leaving this world tomorrow, all the memories of you, your work, and your restaurants would be lost with your departure, with the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom that you could leave behind for the good of humanity and for your legacy, what would those 3 pieces of wisdom be?
Be curious, be kind, and be aware.
I've loved this conversation, man. You really have been good. We're over 2 hours and 15 minutes of recording interview. Like, this has been a lot of fun. I knew you were gonna be good. I'm happy we were able to connect while I was in town. And who do you respect and admire and believe would make a great guest mentor like you made for us today?
Yeah, I've got a lot of names I could throw you, some very close ones to me, but I think that right now and for the future of what's about to happen and what's coming at scale, you need to talk to Massimo DeMarco. He's CEO of Piestro, the pizza-making robot machine, but he's also co-founder of Miso Robotics, the Flippy robot we've talked about. He's involved in a lot of other things that he can talk about, probably a lot of things he can't talk about. But when you talk about a visionary who's thinking about the future and the impact on humanity, both positive and or how to combat the negative impacts of, say, job loss. He's really thinking about the entire global ecosystem around the impacts of what he's involved in building. And so I really think Massimo's, and he's from Milan. He's a northern Italian guy. He's a heck of a storyteller and a fun person to listen to. So he'd be great.
You did put him on our radar. We weren't able to connect on this trip, but I would absolutely love to get Massimo on the show for sure. And how can we connect if we want to follow up with you? I know you mentioned the email a couple times, but any other points of connection we should know about?
Yeah, no, our website at krpusa.com. If you put a /Nurish on it, or you can just find our brands on the button there. Pretty simple interface to learn a little bit more about who we are, what we do, who's on our team, and what we're into. We don't project too much on what's coming next necessarily, but and we're certainly on the platforms. If you want to follow Nurish, it's Nurish or Nurish Brands, NURISH without the O. It's a misspell intentional to simplify it. But LinkedIn, business pages for all of those things. Kiwi Restaurant Partners is on all of the platforms as well.
Beautiful. We'll be sure to link to any of the tools, services, and technologies, resources mentioned on today's show. Just head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/whatever the episode number is. I say it at the beginning of every show. It's in the title of today's show. So just whatever that number is, restaurantunstoppable.com/that number for the summary. And Troy, just thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge, your vision for the future, your mentorship. There is no questioning, my man. You are unstoppable.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you.